You ever hear a story that sounds too outrageous to be true, but then you check the facts and realize it's even weirder than you thought? This is one of those. Buried deep in the cliffs of Mali, West Africa, lives the Dogon Tribe, a small, isolated group of people who on the surface seem just like any other traditional society. They farm, they tell stories, they pass down wisdom from their ancestors. All very normal, until you realize they knew about a tiny invisible star, one that orbits Sirius, a star that can't be seen without a telescope. Has a mass so dense, a teaspoon of it would weigh more than a mountain, and orbits Sirius in an exact 50-year cycle. All of which would be very interesting if modern scientists hadn't only figured this out in the last 100 years. Yet somehow the Dogon have known for much, much longer. No telescopes, no observatories, no physics PhDs, just a quiet certainty passed down through generations. So I guess the obvious question is how? Did they somehow figure it out themselves, thousands of years before modern science? Or were they given this knowledge by someone else? Someone not from here? Because the Dogon don't just vaguely say, "Oh yeah, Sirius has a little mate." No, they get specific. They say Sirius isn't alone. It has a tiny companion star, Sirius B. They say Sirius B is unbelievably heavy and compact. They say it follows a precise 50-year elliptical orbit. And every single one of those details is scientifically accurate. Which is weird because Sirius B is completely invisible to the naked eye. Not just hard to see, impossible. Western astronomers only suspected it was there in 1862 when its gravitational pull was noticed. They finally confirmed it in 1920, and they only managed to photograph it in 1970. The Dogon, however, have been casually chatting about it for much longer, perhaps for thousands of years. Crazy, right? And just to add another layer of what the funk, let's talk about how dense Sirius B actually is. This isn't just your average heavy star. It's one of the most extreme objects in the known universe. A single cubic meter of Sirius B weighs 400,000 times more than Earth's gravity would ever allow. That's like trying to cram 20,000 elephants into a shoebox. Or imagine a teaspoon of it, that little bit of stardust, heavier than an entire mountain. And yet, a remote tribe with no advanced technology knew all of this before NASA even existed. So where did they get this knowledge? Because as much as you might want to write this off as a lucky guess, let's be real. No one is randomly guessing the exact orbital period of an invisible, ultra-dense white dwarf star thousands of years before the invention of the telescope. And when you ask the Dogon how they knew, they don't talk about trial and error. They don't say it was passed down from some ancient scholar. They say they were told by the Nommo. They claim they were taught about it by beings not from Earth. According to their oral history, the Nommo were amphibian-like creatures who came from the Sirius star system, highly intelligent beings who brought knowledge to early humans, the creators of civilization who taught people about astronomy, agriculture, and mathematics. And they didn't just show up, give a seminar, and disappear. The Dogon say the Nommo descended from the sky in a spinning, fiery arc, a craft that glowed, made a deafening noise, and landed slowly, rotating as it came down. Now, I'm not saying that sounds exactly like some of these drones, but yeah. And they weren't just cosmic tourists. And fortunately, they weren't coming to wage war. No, they were teachers. The Nommo didn't just teach about Sirius B. They taught the Dogon about the structure of the universe, atoms, cosmic forces, the concept of energy fields, the science of life, agriculture, medicine, advanced mathematics, the power of sound and language, the idea that words don't just communicate, they create. And here's the bit that sends shivers down your spine. They didn't just pass on knowledge. They left behind a prophecy that one day the Nommo would return. Not in a symbolic way. Literally, their ark would descend from the sky once again. And when it did, they would bring the next phase of knowledge. So now we're left with two options. Either the Dogon were visited by an advanced fish people in the distant past that had their backs, or they somehow figured out the most complex astronomical data with an impossible level of precision on their own, thousands of years before modern science. Both are equally mad. But when you look at the facts, I'm saying it's the ancient intelligent fish people. All right, let's say you don't buy it. You're thinking, this is all just a misunderstanding. Someone must have told them. Except, the first French anthropologists to study the Dogon in the 1930s wrote down their stories before Sirius B's density and exact orbit had been confirmed by modern science. And even if we assume some 19th century European explorer somehow knew all this and told them, despite astronomers not knowing these facts at the time, why would the Dogon absorb this specific piece of knowledge into their religious beliefs while ignoring everything else? And why does their oral tradition match stories from other ancient civilizations? Because they're not the only ones who talk about star beings. The Sumerians had the Anunnaki. The Egyptians had the Neteru. The Aztecs had Quetzalcoatl. The Hindus had the Nagas. Different names, different places, same story. So maybe, just maybe, at some point coincidence stops looking like coincidence. At some point skepticism starts looking like denial. At some point, the facts stop being something to explain away and start becoming something you can't ignore. We're a new channel. If you enjoyed this video or it's given you something to think about, please take a second to give it a like. And if you want to see more, don't forget to hit subscribe. It means the world. See you soon.